Now we'll try something different that's like inception of loops. We'll do a for loop inside a for loop. Let's create a program that we give it a number of lines, let's say 5, and it creates a triangle of numbers. So for the first line, it's going to print on the console 1, on the second line 1, 2, on the third line 1, 2, 3, on the fourth line 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the fifth line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So visually it's gonna look like a triangle of numbers. We'll start of course by defining a function. We're gonna name it triangle of numbers, and inside we're gonna set a parameter of height. So when we call the function, we're gonna start with 5 lines. So in here we're gonna start with a loop. We say for let a row equals 1. Then we're gonna run this loop until a row is smaller or equal to height. So on this example 5 times, and for each loop we're going to increase the row by 1, row plus plus. Inside this loop we're going to set a variable. We're gonna name it line, and inside it's going to have an empty string at the moment. So now we'll start another loop inside the loop for let num for number equals 1. We're going to run this until the numbers are smaller or equal to a row, and for each loop we're going to increase the numbers by 1, num plus plus. And in here we're going to write line plus equals the current number. Outside of this loop we're going to console.log line, and actually we are done. Let's see what plus equals means. We have the row set to 1 and the line is empty, yeah? We'll go in here and we say number 1, so it adds plus equal adds 1 here. Then it breaks the loop and it goes up here and it gives the row 2, and this one starts from 0 again because it resets. So when row is 2, we go in here, we start with 1, and line plus equals gives 1 here. It runs until 2, run plus equals 2, and then it breaks because row was 2, yeah? And then it prints 1, 2, and this resets, and the row becomes 3 now. Line resetted as empty, and we go in here, it runs from 1, it prints 1. It goes to 2, it adds plus equals 2. It goes to 3, it adds plus equals 3. And then it breaks because the row was 3, and we console log 1 to 3, and this is resetting again, and we'll go to 4. So this is how it works. Let's see it in action. Let's press save, and we exactly see right here 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I had here just equal, I set the line to a specific number. If I save it now, it still runs the loop, but every time, even if I have 3 here, and this runs 1, 2, 3, but every time it redefines the line to the current number. So the maximum was 3 until we break, and it only prints the 3. Let me reset that. That's the difference of plus equals, that it always adds instead of redefining. And of course, let's run this for 100 to have just some more fun. And by opening this, we can see this crazy tree. And if we minimize it a lot, we see this crazy pattern we created. This is one example of nested loops that we have a loop inside a loop. Let's go on and try some more of those. The exercise we're gonna practice now is gonna be like we will print a pattern of asterisks down the console that create like an asterisk slope. And the first line is gonna have 1 asterisk, the second is gonna have 2, the third is gonna have 3, so long so forth. We'll try it in the beginning with 5. So let's try to figure out how to do that. Of course, we'll start with a function. We're gonna name it asterisk slope, and in here we're gonna have a variable named height. And when we run the function, we'll set the height to 5 lines. So in here we go for let I equals 1, then we go I is smaller or equal to the height we gave, and each loop it's gonna increase the I by 1, I plus plus. Now in here we're gonna define what the line is going to print. We'll set let line equals, and we'll just put an empty string in here, just an empty string, and underneath we will set another loop. We'll go for let, we'll put J now, the next letter after I, equals 1 again. We'll start from 1, then J is going to stop when it's smaller or equal to I, and this means when we run the first time the loop, the I is 1, this code will run only once. When on the second line the I is 2, this line will run until until j becomes 2. So it will run 2 times. And of course, j as well is going to be increasing by 1. So j plus plus. And inside here, we're going to redefine the line and we're going to make it plus equals. We're going to put a string, and inside the string, we'll put 1 asterisk. So plus equals, it means that it keeps the definition of line and it adds 1 asterisk. So if we run this one on the second line, that I is 2, if we run it twice, it's gonna put 2 asterisks inside. On the third line, we're gonna run this 3 times. It's going to add 3 asterisks inside. But every time we finish this loop right here, we are going to console.log the line. So we are ready. Let's run this experiment, save, and we see down there we have our first slope. And of course, if we run it with a height of 10 and save, we can see it creating 10 lines. And if we run it 100 times, okay, the pattern is broken, but if we open it like that, you can see all this crazy thing going on. Now we'll try a more complicated pattern. I want you to pause a little bit and read the code one last time and make sure that we understand what we did here. Let me put some spaces. So let's explain the code one last time. We start here with the first line and I equals 1. We define a line that's an empty string. And in here, we say that j equals 1. This for loop is gonna stop at 1. And we go line plus equals. This adds 1 asterisk in there. And the loop is closing because the I was 1 and the j is already 1. We console log it. Then the I becomes 2. We define again another empty line from the scratch, from the beginning. And then we go in here and the j is 1. It adds 1 asterisk up in there, just like that. Then the j becomes 2 and comes here and it adds another asterisk up there, second one. And now the j is equal to 2 because the I was 2 this time and it's the second line, and this loop stops and we'll go and console log the second line, that's 2 asterisks. Hopefully this makes sense because right now we're gonna try another pattern that is more complicated than this one. Now we're going to create a more complicated pattern that's going to be an asterisk pyramid. Again, we'll go with 5 lines as an example. So we'll start function asterisk pyramid with a value of height, and when we run it, we'll try 5 lines at the moment. We start exactly as earlier for let I equals 1. We're going to stop the loop when I is smaller or equal to height, and for every loop we're going to be increasing the I by 1, so I plus plus. In here we're going to define exactly like earlier a line that is equal to an empty string, and now the complicated stuff begins. We have to find out here how to define these patterns, because on the empty boxes we're gonna put empty spaces. The empty spaces on the right side, we don't actually have to print them. They're just gonna be empty space by default. So we have to find here a pattern on how many spaces we're going to print on each line. In here in this example, we're going to write 5 lines. On the first line, the spaces are 4, so they are 5, as many as the lines, minus 1. On the second row, they are 3. We have 5 lines, they are 5 minus 2 equals 3. Then on the third line, they are 2, so they are 5 minus 3, and we see this pattern occurring. And on the fifth line, we have 5 lines minus 5 equals 0 white spaces. So in order to indicate the spaces, we see the pattern mathematically that it's always the numbers of all the lines minus the current line. Let's try to write that in a loop. So in here we can put a comment and we're going to create the empty spaces. So we go for let j equals 1. We're going to write this until j is smaller than height minus I, and then we're doing, of course, j plus 1. We're going inside the line and we say plus equals, so we only add and we put only a space here. So this time when the I is 1, we go height 5 minus 1, 4. It's going to run this 4 times and then it's going to stop. So small parenthesis here, this is me from the future when I'm modding the video. My logic here has a small error. You have to put j is smaller or equal to height minus I if you want this to work properly. If you already caught my error before I interrupt the video, let me know in the comments below and I'm gonna congratulate you. But let's see, even with a small error in there, how we're gonna anticipate it and when we're gonna find it out that we have a small hole inside our coding. But then after that, we still have to add the asterisk. We'll create another loop for let k equals 1. And now we have to see that on the first line we have 1 asterisk. On the second one we have 3. On the third one we have 5. On the fourth one we have 7. So we go 1, 3, 5, 7. So we see a pattern here. It's always twice the line minus 1. For instance, on the first line the I is 1. We'll go 2 multiplied by 1, 2 minus 1, 1 asterisk. On the second line I becomes 2. We have 2 by 2, 4 minus 1, 3 asterisks. On the third line the I becomes 3, and we have 2 times 3, 6, minus 1, 5, and we have 5 asterisks. And this pattern works for every single line. So in here we have k lower or equal, opening parenthesis, 2 multiplied by I minus 1, and then we go k plus plus, and all we do is line plus equals, we open a string and we put the asterisk. And of course after this loop we have to actually console.log the line. Let's press save, and are you curious to see if this thing actually worked? Boom, we have a nice pyramid here. Are we missing one space here, or it's my idea? Let's do here +1 to add an extra space and run it again, and now I think we are right. So I missed on my calculations, and if we run it 10 times, save, boom. That's why these exercises are so much fun, because you can see visually immediately what's going wrong and you can correct it. The moment you run the code, it's like you actually debug it at the same time. Ta-da! Now we are going to build a function that's named OnlyPrimes. And if this reminds you of a popular website, I had nothing to do with that. So let's define input number, and in the end we're going to run OnlyPrimes until, let's say, 10. So what I want us to do is to create a function here that you put a number, for instance 10, and it's printing down there in the console all the prime numbers from 2 until 10. Let's see the definition of prime numbers. So we see here a whole number greater than 1. So 1 we don't include it, we start from 2, that cannot be exactly divided by any whole number other than itself and 1. So the 1 is inside the definition and we start from 2. And it's giving us an example here, 2, 3, 5, 7. So what this means, that 2 is divided only by 2 and 1. 3 is divided only by itself and 1. 4 it's divided by 2, so we don't include it here. 5 it's only divided by itself and 1. 6 is divided by 2 and it's divided by 3, so we don't include it. And then 7 is only divided by itself and 1. 8 is divided by 2 and 4. 9 is divided by 3. So this is why we only include these ones from 1 to 10. Let's see how we can write all these things into coding. We'll start with a for loop, of course, because when we write here 10, we want to investigate all the numbers until 10. For, opening parenthesis, let current num, for current number, equals 2. We skip 1. We said we don't test 1 as a prime. Then we go like current number is smaller or equal to input number. So when the current number is equal to 10, it's gonna break the loop and stop. And then for each loop we go current number plus plus, so we increase for each loop the current number by 1 only. In here we go let is prime equal to true, so we start suggesting that this number we are trying is actually a prime. Then we go for, we start another loop inside the loop, let factor equals 2, then factor multiplied by factor, and of course this one we can write it math.pow factor comma 2, but I write like that so everybody can see what we're doing clearly, and we run it until this multiplication is equal or lower to current number. And then of course we go factor plus plus, and in here we're gonna see if current number modulo factor triple equals 0. So what actually we are doing, let's say that we are running for current number equals 8. Yeah, we're going in here and we say 2 by 2 equals 4. 4 is lower than 8, so we are checking 8 modulo 2 and it is equal to 0. Then we're going to say is prime equals false, and we put a break here. We break this eternal loop because we found that actually 8 is divided by 2 perfectly, and we set is prime as false, and we break the loop because we don't need to try again for factor 3. We don't need no more to search because we found already that 8 is not a prime. We don't have to keep looking, and we break it. When we break it, we go back there and we say if is prime triple equals true, console.log current number. When we run this thing for 7, for instance, we go in here and we say 7 modulo 2 has a remainder of 1. So it's not 0. 7 modulo 3 has a remainder of 1. Again, it's not 0. So this loop stops at some point without the break. And because none of the numbers we tested gave us modulo 0, the number 7 remained true. The is prime never became false. So this time it goes here and prime triple equals true is actually true. And we console log the specific number. Let's run it to see what we've done. And in here, exactly as expected, we see that we have 2, 3, 5 and 7, exactly what it writes here. And now, of course, we can go on and see the first prime numbers until 50, the first prime numbers until 100. And if you go on and Google, you can double check that our results are absolutely correct. That was today's lesson. Let me know in the comments if you liked it or not. I think it's very interesting to try these loops inside of loops, but of course I know that some of these concepts are a bit challenging. I know in the last couple of lessons we used a lot of math and a lot of mathematical logic, so I promise you that we're gonna take a break from math because the next lesson is going to be arrays and they have nothing to do with math. So we are going indeed to take a break from math and introduce some new interesting concepts. So make sure you subscribe, don't miss the next lesson because it's gonna be something new and something exciting. So I'll see you next video.